Outsourcing parts of my business and even parts of my everyday life have been, it's been critical in reclaiming a lot of my time, expanding my business, giving myself more leverage. So that's what I want to talk about with you in this video. I get the question occasionally, my business is things are working out. I'm getting busier and busier. I know you have assistants. I know you've kind of been there, done that. What advice do you have for me as I look to expand my business and expand my leverage? I don't get that question enough. Before we dig into this, I want to throw out a disclaimer here. I'm not the guy to follow if what you're after is the absolute strongest bottom line profitability for your business. Maybe an odd disclaimer, right? For those of you who followed me for any length of time, you know that I'm pretty casual, pretty laid back. My approach to hiring and creating more leverage may be a little unique. But if you're wired anything like me, my approach should work really, really well for you, and probably what I'm about to tell you will resonate and feel pretty natural. And for the rest of you that may be looking to leverage some geographical advantages, maybe I'll get questions asked after this video probably, why haven't you hired people from other continents where the going rate is pennies on the dollar? That is not, I'm aware of my options there. I just haven't taken that strategy for a few specific reasons. Before I dig into this, let's start with the big question. When should you hire help? This is a simple equation, actually. When you find yourself in a profitable enough groove in your day-to-day business where you start to notice that the mundane stuff that you got to do every day is absolutely getting in the way of you making more money, you found the right time to start to outsource. In my own experience, this all started a couple years ago. I'll tell you a couple different stories here of how I've hired a couple of my favorite assistants over the last couple years. So the first time, I was not making a whole lot of money, but I knew I was in a really good groove. I knew I was on a path to significantly expand my income, but I had these steps that I had to take every single day. Totally routine, totally mundane, the kind of thing that is easy to hand off to somebody else, to entrust to somebody else to get done every day. And I started taking things just one thing at a time. My first hire was a friend. It was somebody I trusted. It was somebody who at the time was looking for work. I knew and trusted this person already. We had an existing relationship. So when I found out that he was available, I already knew he had a ridiculous work ethic. I knew he could be completely trusted. I share my credit card information and stuff like that with him so he could handle some of even my personal stuff. I trusted him on that level. So it was actually a really, really simple, casual hire. It was a phone call where I said, hey, I know you're looking for work. I've got some extra stuff that I need done every day that if somebody were handling that, I could do these other things that would expand the operation here. I know this is probably not what you were looking for, but I could probably give you some work and we can kind of see how this goes. And I want to pause on something there that's really important. Each time I've hired a new assistant, I use verbiage that gives us both an out. So you want to make this a probationary, a testing kind of a thing, a dating kind of a thing. We're not getting married. Let's just date and see how it works out, right? So, and I have had to let a couple of assistants go. It just didn't work out. You want to give yourself an out. Don't overcommit. So I found a friend in need who is trustworthy. I didn't overcommit. I talked about it in terms of being a kind of a probationary testing kind of a thing. And then I began farming out just one thing at a time. The reality is I didn't have processes in place in my own business at that point that allowed me to hand over a sheet of paper with ABC 1, 2, 3. So what I found that worked really well for me is I would hand off one single task at a time, and it might be 2 or 3 or 4 days later, a week later, before I could hand off a second task. I wouldn't hand off a second task usually until the first task was really, really clear, very well laid out, And often that happened through a process of trial and error. I'd work with my assistant, they would look at what I was doing, what I needed to be done, and we would talk through it, and I would educate them on how this needed to work. Along the way, we were able to build resources. If you think of this like, if you were to hire somebody to handle customer service for you, if they were going to go through all of your email, all of your Facebook inbound messages, all of your Skypes, all of your texts, you would need for them to know how your business works generally. You would need for them to have easy access to all of the frequently asked questions that you get in your day-to-day life and business. You would need to have canned responses, or at least drafts of canned responses available for this assistant to be most effective in the least amount of time on your behalf. So with all that said, let's dive into some specific questions that you might have. What kinds of things could you outsource? How specifically could you leverage yourself? Let me just share what I've done. When I first started hiring help, I was looking for help in anything that could allow me to reclaim time. Here's one of many things that I had an assistant handle for me. I had a billing dispute with a cable company in South Florida. I had enough experience with this company to understand that if I wanted to resolve this, it was going to take hours on the phone of somebody's time to get this resolved. It was a simple matter. I was double billed and I had evidence of it. Unfortunately, there was no quick, easy solution to say, hey, you double billed me, can you fix this? And the amount of the double, it was maybe about a $250 or so overage on my bill. So I had this task that to me is worth about $250. So is a great example. I thought at the time, I wonder, is this something, well, yeah, this is something I could outsource. This is just part of my personal life. This is, an hour, 2 or 3 hours of my day that doesn't have to be an hour, 2 or 3 hours of my day. And you really want to start to get yourself in that mode. When I didn't have to spend that hour to 3 hours resolving that issue, saving myself, a couple $100, I was able to focus on productive stuff. I was able to be productive in my business. Even if you use that time, which I do all the time, to go to the beach with the family, or whatever else, it comes down to how can you enjoy the best possible daily quality of life. Double billing is an example of part of my personal life pieces of my personal life that I've been able to outsource. All I did was call in with my assistant on the line and say, I want to authorize my assistant to speak on my behalf, and did whatever rigmarole they expected to authorize another person on my account, and then I'm done. I'm out of the picture, and my assistant now has been empowered to handle that on my behalf. So how about some business things? I just gave you a personal example. One of the first things I started getting help with was callbacks. At that stage in my business, I had people calling in, people writing in, people texting, Skyping, and all the different ways, hoping to talk to me. I was working on a business model where I had prospects out there all over the world, and occasionally through written communication, they would reach back out and say, you know what, I want to talk to you. I found by experience that kind of stuff bogged me down. And it didn't necessarily have to be me. And actually, it was far more powerful. Not only did I get leverage, I got respect, and people looked at me in a whole different light. When I changed my language a little, and it was no longer in my written communications and social media and whatever it was, I took away that expectation that people could just talk to me. I started talking openly about having help, having an assistant. And if you'd like to talk to somebody, my assistant's available to help you out. He or she is very familiar with my business top to bottom. They're equipped to get you answers and help you get moving in the direction you want to get moving. Imagine what that does for your stature in your prospect's eye, right? That's a big deal. Another part of my business and life that I outsourced early on was all of my email. So now as you're watching this video, you may be going, oh boy. So I've been sending Christian email for years, on and off, or months, and I wonder if he even saw it. I might not have. You might have seen a response that came literally from my email account that was handled by one of my assistants. Most of that is handled by my assistants and has been for quite some time now. It has been huge in terms of being able to reclaim time. I used to spend a lot of time in my inbox. I don't anymore. Let's talk about the money involved here. Maybe you're thinking, I don't really make that kind of money. Maybe you don't feel like you do. So keep in mind that my communication with my first assistant was, honestly, it was kind of tentative. This was a friend I was dealing with. I wasn't sure if he would be interested in helping me out. And I let him know right up front, my business is a fledgling business. I look forward to the day when I can take care of you better. What I'm looking at right now is if you've got some extra time at the house with an internet connection and a phone, I can push some work your way. I can't pay a whole lot yet, but maybe we can grow together. In each case, my prospective assistant has been grateful for the opportunity to make a few extra dollars, even if it's literally 10, 20 bucks a day or something like that. I was really honest and told them I don't have a lot of extra money. I would like to work something out. As I'm able to spend more time on productive stuff, income producing things, I'll have more capacity to number one, give you more work, and to number two, pay you more what you're worth. Another question I've gotten is, how can you make sure your assistant is doing a good job or representing you appropriately? I don't know the best answer to that, honestly. When I've first gotten new assistants started, I take extra time to be there and be aware of what's being said and how things are being handled, and all that. And once this already trusted person in my life shows themselves to be prompt and communicate on my behalf well, and whatever I'm looking for, once I see evidence of that over just a few days, from then, honestly, I have a lot of trust. And it's rare that I'll check up on my assistants. I haven't had the need. Maybe I've just been fortunate. I don't know. I would like to think that we all have people in our lives that can be completely trusted. Take this seriously. You might not be ready today, but if you're starting to ask this question, you're probably close. What I would start to do is notice more of your day-to-day routine. Figure out the line items, what makes up your calendar. Look for areas where it's mundane and redundant, and then look at the income producing activity that you do and make sure that that's something you can grow and scale at will. If you can, you need to hire help.